Hi, it is Barely Editing Nat, and I say barely because I just barely imported all the clips, and the time is 2 hours and 30 minutes. So pray for me that I'm able to cut 30 minutes out of this, and that it's under 2 hours. If not, we'll see. Enjoy.
Okay, I think we're ready. This is wild. Okay, we have to go back. Actually, I need to create a new scene. Look at that. Look at me. Hi, it's Nat. I have a green screen. Truth be told, I've had this green screen since 2020. So I'm just now getting to use it. Enjoy. I'm gonna take you through the movies that I saw this year. There are some like short films missing. I just put the ones that I felt like, I don't want to say most compelled by, but the ones that stuck out the most this year. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, you know what time it is. It's time to rank all the movies I watched in 2024. Starting with the worst. These are not like the worst movies that came out this year. When I say worst, I just mean like if I had to list every single movie that I watched in order from the best to the least best, I guess that's a better way of putting it. I didn't watch horrible movies, except for some. There are some. So the only movies that I disliked this year are the bottom four that I have. Everything else I either liked a little bit, just not as much as like the best movies of the year for me, just to kind of give you a gauge on where my scale falls. Another disclaimer, the way that I rate movies in terms of star rating will not always equal the ranking on the list that they are. When I'm rating movies after I watch them, I will rate the movie that I just saw in comparison with other movies within the genre or the type of movie. So I will never compare like a Despicable Me 3 to a Interstellar because they're not the same kind of movie when rating them with the stars. So sometimes there will be some star ratings that are higher, but they're lower on the list compared to another one. Because when I compare all the movies to each other, that ranking's a little bit different. Just kind of keep that in mind because you might see some like 3 stars, then a 5 star, then another 3 star, and you're like, well, why is the 5 star below? Also, I'm very aware that I might have a recency bias, and by might, I mean I do. I do have a recency bias, so there's a lot of movies that I watched in February that I really didn't remember that much. So those might be a little bit less accurate than the later movies that I watched. Last disclaimer, there is about 2-ish weeks left of movies that are about to come out for the year before the year is over. I'm recording this on the 17th, and you're seeing this either on the 23rd or the 24th. So keep that in mind. I might have already seen some movies. If you want to see what I have been watching and keep up with it as it's coming out, you can follow me on Letterboxd. I will have that information both on screen and down below. So without further ado, I will finally start the actual video. 54th is this piece of shit right here. Oh my god, I will keep it brief. Very brief. This is just Israeli propaganda about the Munich massacre, what it was called, and I'm not saying that movies like this cannot come out. I just think that it is a very pointed time in which it came out. Don't watch it, please. If I could rate it 0 stars, I would. I saw this as part of a AMC unseen screen thing. I completely forget how to say it. Had I known what this movie was about going into it, I would have completely just skipped it. I would not have attended this because I did not want to watch this movie. Next. I'm gonna try to keep it shorter than this. So we have Afraid. And this one, I don't know why, in my head before going into it, I thought that they wouldn't use AI. I truly don't know what I was thinking, and I think the premise is okay. I don't think that they needed to use AI. I do not like generative AI. I believe that there need to be laws around it before we can widely implement it into our society, because as it stands right now, if corporations can take another extra penny out of us, they will. That's that on that. Next. 52nd, we got Alien Romulus. I think it would have been a very good movie had they not put in the resurrected character. I think that if they're not alive to consent, they shouldn't be put into a movie. As far as I'm aware, this did not have any consent. This is the last of the movies that I dislike. And this one's finally for not AI or shitty reasons. This movie just pissed me off. If you look on Letterboxd right now and look at my review of this, I believe it has spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, which you're not going to be if you watch the trailer. It was full of plot holes. I think that had the first half been the whole movie, I would have been so much happier. I think the second that we leave the stadium is when all shit hits the fan, and like not in a good way. I just feel like this execution was very poor. Deadpool Wolverine. I've had it. The funny thing is I barely got on the Marvel train, right? I had not watched any Marvel movie until 2021, I believe. I think it's bland, but okay. 2.5. I mean, 2.5. 2 out of 5. Next, we got Despicable Me 4. I just think this was one of the worst Despicable Me's. And I'm one of those people that enjoys these movies. These are fun. Like, some of these are fun. This one, not really. It felt very just disjointed. I think that it was two different movies that were jammed into one, and they picked, like, the okayest parts from each. Not horrible, not great. 2 out of 5. We got another. And I want you to understand, I'm not opposed to animation. You will see some animation later down the line that is amazing and beautiful and well crafted. I just think that a lot of the animation today from bigger studios, and it's not even like a feel. We have proof that executives from Disney are moving away from like personal stories from like Luca and Red, or Turning Red, sorry, and like it pisses me off because it's purely motivated by money. Because if they actually cared, they would make the stories that are personal because they actually resonate with people. This could be a whole nother video solely about how I feel about stories and how impersonal they're starting to get because they want to appeal to mass audiences. Whatever. Next. Hear me out. I did also watch X and Pearl, and you'll find them later in the list. So that's telling you something. Maxine sucked ass. Compared to the other two movies, I think that this one completely dropped the ball, and for its sake, I hope that it gets a fourth movie just to be able to make up for what Maxine was. Maxine felt like, again, a very disjointed movie. I think this could have been much better. So we have Airplane. This one's unrated, technically, or not rated from me. It is just so of its time. It felt very weird to rate it. You know what I mean? Like, it is an 80s movie. If you want to watch an 80s movie, watch this one. This one is an 80s movie. I think that's the only rating I can give it. So yeah, 80s movie. Next. Okay, again, another hear me out. I think this would have been a better movie for me had I been able to watch the first one first, like I planned to. This was another AMC Screen Unseen, and I just keep doing this to myself. I need to prepare better when it comes to these. This is the first one that I went to, and I was excited. It was a good movie. It's 3 out of 5 stars. Like, it's not bad. It's just, I feel like it could have been better. So part of the reason why I didn't like it is because of the story itself felt very, I keep saying disjointed, but I feel like that is the best way to describe a lot of like quote unquote flops of the year. It feels very disjointed. There was something else planned, which we know that there was 12 minutes cut of a Palestinian actress. So that's probably what happened in terms of the cohesion of the story. And then the other half is that I didn't understand what happened in the first one because I had never watched it and I wanted to watch it, but I couldn't. So, 45 out of 54. Little Women. I watched this at a craft event thing that I went to. It was just like a movie was playing and we were either like knitting, crocheting, any kind of like art that you do. The reason I bring up the craft thing is because it relates to the story. I feel like it was a very good movie to watch in a room full of not men, because I'm not by whatever. It was a really cool movie to watch and see like how far we've come, but also sadly how not far we've come and regressed. But yeah, it was a nice starting to get into the winter spirit, even though it was like 80 degrees that day. I next. So the Bling Ring. This is actually one of the only two rewatches on this list. This movie was seen in theaters. AMC and A24 did a collab thing together, which actually I have stickers. Sorry, I'm messing up the colors. AMC and A24 did a Teenage Dream series. They played The Bling Ring, mid-90s, 8th grade, and Talk to Me. This is actually one of the first movies I remember watching, like as I was getting into my film bro era, I guess. So having rewatched this movie after, I think it was 10 years, it was much better the second time around, but still not as good, which is why it's pretty low on the list. I feel like if you had asked me back then, I would have been like, this is a banger ass movie, 5 out of 5. Now that A24 has gotten more, what's the word I'm looking for? Established in their voice, which again could be debatable because we have been getting some questionable movies. Civil War and the new Warfare that's coming out. I don't know how I feel about that. I do know how I feel about that, and I don't like it. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Between the Temples. This is a good example of what I was talking about with the 4 to 5 stars being 42 on the list. It's not that it was bad, it's that I don't really remember it. Like, I very vaguely remember the movie, and I recently watched it. I watched it on the 1st of September. So it's not like it was months and months and months and months ago at the beginning of the year. It was very recent, and I don't remember why I gave it 4 stars. Definitely, there has been a better movie that came out this year that includes Jason Schwartzman, and we'll get to that. This was seen at AMC as part of A-List. I will not mention when I see something from A-List. I'm just going to mention if I've seen it elsewhere, because the majority of these were A-List. You should join A-List. From this movie onward, I definitely recommend all of these. They are on my liked these movies list or loved these movies list. I think from here on is where it's definitely, yeah, I liked it, you should watch it kind of thing. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to keep repeating myself because I believe that these are all good movies and you should all watch them. Okay, this is, I feel like another hear me out. It's not that it was bad. It's that you're gonna see the movies that are later on and be like, yeah, this makes sense. Maybe you won't. Maybe you will hardcore disagree with me. That's totally fine. I loved this movie. It was very beautiful. I just think that in terms of how deeply impacted and or how much I liked the other movies overall, this one just had to fall lower on the list. We are going to be getting into worse and worse territory as we go on because I watched so many bangers this year. So I also read books. And one of my favorite genres is literary fiction. Basically, the best way to describe it is there's no plot, only vibes. So I watched this in February. I think it was one of, if not the first movie I watched this year. So I think it's just a little clouded because of how far away it is. Again, recency bias. Kinds of Kindness. I think I need another rewatch. I liked it, hence the 3.5. So a half star is definitely did not like. A 1 star, I don't know how many 1 stars I give. 2 stars is I didn't like it, but it's fine. 3 stars, I guess, is just an average, it's a movie kind of thing. And then 3.5 is when we start getting to above average where I liked it and we're getting somewhere. And then 8, why'd I say 8? 4 is nearly perfect, and then 5 is perfect. Kind of give a little bit of a gist here on number 39, because I couldn't do it earlier. I liked it. I liked the 3 different stories that we got. I also didn't watch Poor Things, and I still want to watch it, so we'll see how I feel when I get more context on this director. This one was watched on YouTube, if I'm correct. It's a short film. It's one of the only short films that is on my list. This one was watched on the 23rd of August. I think I was starting to do some like research on previous work because I think this was around the time that if it wasn't announced at this time, I was made aware in August that we would be getting Nosferatu, so I was kind of doing some research on the director. Dee Dee is at number 37. I watched this on August 19th, and we'll find a movie later down the line that I feel I resonate to more, that is of the same vein of coming of age, very internet coded. What would have sold me more on this is if I was able to relate more, and I think it's just because I'm a little too young for this movie. So I was coming into the internet as MySpace was nearing its end. It still had many years, because I got into the like internet in like 2005, 2006 is when I really remember starting to use the internet, especially around like 2009. So about that time is when the switch from MySpace to Facebook was starting to happen. So that's kind of why I can't really relate on like MySpace fronts or like AOL, because those things weren't as used by my generation. Because I was born in 98. So I am of the last Gen Zers. Very old Gen Z, if you will. Unk, some might say. It's still a good movie though. I really recommend it if you grew up on the internet in the same way I did, or around the same time, if not earlier. I also think that younger siblings would really relate to this movie more. And in terms of just like cherry on top enjoyability, I think what would have pushed it a little bit further for me specifically is if it was a Mexican or Latin American character that we followed. Not to say that I'm mad that it's an Asian character. I just believe that in the same way that Blue Beetle was a little bit better for Mexicans, this movie's going to be better for Asian Americans. There's just like those small things that you're like, that's so right. That is exactly how our household works. You know what I mean? So Past Lives, I liked it. 4.45. 4.5? I liked Past Lives. It is a 4 out of 5 on here. But the reason it's so low is because I feel like this kind of story was done better. I know that it's not one to one, but Challengers I feel like does it just a tad bit better in having the split love interests across a very long period of time. I desired more out of it, but that does not make it a bad movie. It's just lower on my list because of that. Again, 4 out of 5 stars. It's a good movie. It was either the first or the second movie that I watched this year, so back on February 11th. I watched 3 movies on February 11th, so we have one left that we have not seen yet. Yeah, there's one other movie that I watched on February 11th that is coming up, and I think that one actually was the first one I saw. I truly can't remember, so I don't know why I'm saying that for everyone. One of them has to be true, you know? See? I told you we'd get here. We have Pearl, and this is the second in the trilogy. I gave it a 3.5. I think it was really good. I enjoyed how vivid and bright everything was while still being such a good horror. It was a very visually pleasing film. Here's X. See, I told you they weren't horrible. I like this trilogy. This one's a little bit better for me than Pearl. I always have more of an affinity towards the first in a series. They feel more raw. And I don't know if it's because it's usually a lower budget as compared to the other movies in series, but I think the first one in series just has a little bit more oomph to them for me. So that's why I usually have the first of series as my favorite of the series. I watched both Pearl and X on July 4th, which I think is funny because I think I chose them because of the fireworks. I wanted something loud in comparison, and I thought screaming horror would be great. So July 4th for some reason, and I watched those both on Prime. One of them was included and one of them I had to rent. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but alas, we do what we need to for cinema, I guess. Y2K. I know that people don't like this one. I think it's hilarious. I think it is so campy, and y'all are afraid of camp unless someone holds your hand. I will stand by that. This movie was good. I also just realized that the outfit that I'm currently wearing is like my go-to movie outfit. I love this Carhartt shirt and the combo with the flannel, and it's like just enough warmth for me in a theater. And it's just really funny that I'm I'm wearing it with the pants that I also wear to the movie theater. This was very unintentional. I just needed something that wasn't gonna fuck with the green screen. And here we are. Next. And so here we are. So I had a lesser opinion of challengers before seeing another Luca movie. Without spoiling, I guess my favorite thing about this one is that you really don't know how to feel about the characters. It's one of those where all the characters are like, you just want to like shake them a little bit, like, you're just stop that. And so I think it does that really well. I will discuss more when we get to the other movie. I watched Challengers, I believe it was close to when it released, but I watched it May 15th. From May onward, we kind of ramp up. I think, yeah, from February to May, there were no movies. Or so, like March and April, I did not go to the movies at all. I went to Coachella both weekends, and that killed me. So, understandable. We have come to the last of the February 11th movies, The Sweet East. I don't feel like a lot of people talked about this one, but I absolutely loved it when I watched it. It felt like Alice in Wonderland meets Bottoms, and it's not only because Io Debris is in both this and Bottoms, but it's so good. It's kind of like Kinds of Kindness. You know what? That's what it is. It's Kinds of Kindness, Bottoms, and Alice in Wonderland. Another weirder coming of age. We have our first physical copy. So I got this movie secondhand from one of our media stores in Arizona. It's Bookman's. If you're from here, definitely go there, but don't go there because I don't want you to take my movies. But go there. Go there. They have a Criterion collection section, and I like browsing there to see if I can get some Criterions for cheap. And this one came in like all of its original packaging. So I of course had to cop. I was like, it's Wes Anderson. It's also older Wes Anderson. I haven't seen that. Let's check it out. Pleasantly surprised. I loved it. I think it does a dysfunctional family super well. And I also loved seeing Wes Anderson's older stuff. They felt much more grounded while still having the like Wes Anderson flair. Don't get me wrong, I love the more like artsy Wes Anderson. I just think that this one was nice to see. Yeah, just nice to see. So now we're on to mid 90s. As I said before, I watched this as part of the Teenage Dreamland series, I think is what it was called. I'm not gonna look it up again. It was my first time watching it, and I watched it in theaters. I remember wanting to watch it when it originally came out, but I wasn't like really going to the movies like that. Thankfully, A24 has been doing things like this, so I'm able to watch these movies again. And honestly, I feel like a lot of production companies are doing this, and personally, I like it. I just don't want it to fill all the theaters because some movies that are coming out now are not getting those theater spots, and it's very unfortunate. I just want more art house movies in Arizona. I feel like it's very hard to come by. That was a rant, tangent. Mid 90s, again, it's another really, really good coming of age story from a very dysfunctional family, and I'm really enjoying these as an adult. I've always loved coming of age, and you'll see just how many coming of age movies I have and how high they are on the list. But coming of age is just like my favorite genre. It is the genre that I've always felt most seen in, and I feel like a lot of it is because as an autistic person, I feel like I'm always coming of age. I feel like I'm never done trying to keep up and make it to those same spots as like my other peers, which can be said for a lot of other people who deal with a lot of other stuff and they don't have autism, but personally that's what I gravitate towards the genre more. We're nearing the top 25. I'm telling you, it's so hard. It's so hard to put this movie down here. I just couldn't justify putting them higher up above other movies. I loved Honora so much. I really enjoyed, and I mean this in the best way possible because I am a romance book reader. It felt like a romance written by a woman. It's just so from the female gaze, and I know that that term gets tossed around a lot and what have you, but I really do think that this movie benefited so much from having Mikey be so into learning about what stripping means. So Sean Baker is not a woman, and that's why I caution to say female gaze, but I do feel that the actress does so well in trying to learn from strippers and accurately represent strippers that it does get us to that point where we can say that it is through the female lens or through the female gaze. So again, it hurts me to put this low on the list, but I have to. It's you'll see moving forward, or maybe you won't understand, but for me, the other movies are much better overall. 27. We Live in Time. I unfortunately watched this, and maybe fortunately, maybe I really needed it that day. I watched this on the day after the election, And if you couldn't already tell from the other stances that I've mentioned, I am so far left. I just needed a little pick me up. And I think I did the best thing for me because I watched this one and the next movie on this list on the same day. And I think that it was the perfect combination of movies to fill up the hole that was in my body, that is currently still in my body. I think I should watch these movies again. But I think that this movie does a really good job of showing someone's life and not the sickness or the disease as a crutch for the movie. I know this is probably not a lot of people's favorite movie. I loved it. I truly loved it. I cannot explain to you just how happy this movie makes me, but not in a way that this is like a happy movie, because I think that it shows a lot of the dark sides of a relationship and a lifetime essentially, but it does a good job of showing the harder parts while still being able to be inspirational, for lack of a better phrase. I understand that it can be like cringy, but I choose to believe that like nothing is truly cringe. I think that that word is overused and it's being used to mean genuine nowadays, and I think that this movie is very genuine. Think about like musical theater, right? This might be a stretch. Musical theater, sometimes you're like, yeah, this is so a musical right now. Like I can feel it, but you still sit with it and you let that happen because that's just the way that the media is, and that's endearing, right? If you look at here the same way, I promise you, you will enjoy this movie a lot more than if you went in being like, this is so dumb, this is so cheesy, blah blah blah. You know, I'm done talking about this movie. I obviously loved it. But now it's time for the top 25. We have The Outrun. This is a Saoirse Ronan that I was very excited to see. I'm always excited to see Saoirse Ronan. And I say that knowing damn well that I still haven't seen Lady Bird or Little Women 2019. Very big on my must watch list. I know that I have to watch them. And I will. I will. I promise. Trigger warning: alcoholism and addiction, period. That's what this movie deals with. So if that's on your speed, don't watch it. This is based on a memoir, I believe. It doesn't feel as sanitized as a more like run of the mill addiction story would be. I think this one does a very good job of blurring the lines as to who is the, I don't want to say antagonist, but who's in the wrong in any situation. And you really see that the main character is an unreliable narrator to a certain extent, and it really has you question that a lot throughout the movie. I really enjoyed this one. I'm not going to keep saying that because obviously we are in the top 25. Of course I enjoyed it. My old ass. Come on. I can't say too much about it without spoiling it, but again, it's one of those coming of age movies that is just a little different. A lot of the directors now, I feel, who grew up with coming of age as one of their favorite genres or their favorite genre, are able to introduce other elements into newer, now coming of age films that were not present before, and I think this one does it very, very well with the time. I don't want to say time travel necessarily, but her older self comes back and gives her some advice to not interact with someone. And the entire movie, you're trying to figure out why. And I, again, will not spoil the rest of the movie. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy these more magical realism, that's the word I'm looking for, in coming of age because it does mesh very well together. I think very similar to how body horror is very, very closely linked to trans stories. So if you kind of understand the connections, the tangents that I'm going on, you'll like this movie. I have not talked this much for this long in a very long time, so apologies. My voice is going to get raspier and raspier as we go. Long legs. So, hear me out, right? Great, beautiful, amazing, scrumptious, we are so back horror. Only thing I don't like about it is that at the very end they spoon feed you the whole story. I don't like that. That's truly my only criticism of this movie. I think it does a very good job of meshing the genre of police procedurals, criminal movies, criminal shows with horror in a way that lends very well to a mystery like the one in Longlegs. I just wish that it wasn't so in your face with the moral of the story, the reasoning behind the movie. But that doesn't necessarily detract. It's on my top 25. I just personally think that there are definitely other horror that came out this year that is so much better than Longlegs as a whole. So this one wasn't really early, but it was earlier for me because of the fact that, like I said, I'd watched 3 movies in February and then nothing until May. So this was one of the May movies that I watched, and it was on the 15th. I watched this the same day that I watched Challengers. I don't remember in which order, and I'm not going to pretend like I remember. This movie does class very, very well. The poor get poorer and the rich get richer, and exploring that from someone who, quote unquote, has like nothing to lose. So, this one I've already talked about a little bit. I mentioned this in the Twilight knitting socks video, like the first one. It is so good. I also really loved Women Talking last year, but this gave the same vibe as Women Talking because it's a story about women's struggles in a time where the majority of society in the area or in general is much more misogynistic and overtly so than they are now. I wouldn't say that they've diminished in numbers. I just think that it's more covert and systemic. Another one of those movies where, yes, it's happening a very long time ago, but it is still very, very pertinent to the times today. So, Memoir of a Snail. I watched that on the 23rd of October. I actually just came back from when we were young that week, and I had to go see it this day because it was also part of a live stream Q&A event. We were able to get some insight on the movie before watching it, and I think that it does a really good job of prepping and priming you for what you're about to watch. The director talks about how dense this movie is in meaning. There's so many more layers to the movie than what meets the eye. A perfect example of that is how philosophy is intertwined in all of this, and in the trailer and in the movie you get a quote from a philosopher, which I will butcher, but it is in my Letterboxd review, which go read that. I think it's a much better job of saying what I want to say right now. The quote more or less being that we understand life backwards, but we must live it forwards. I believe if it's not R, it's definitely PG-13. Oddity. Such a good horror. This movie was also in July, and I think it came out around the same time as Longlegs, and or was just at least overlapping in theaters in July. I saw this on the 21st, so I saw Longlegs first, and then I saw this one. Not that it's the same kind of movie, they're very different movies. I just think that Oddity overall as a full package is just a tad bit better than Longlegs in terms of horror. Smile 2. Yes. Yes. Of course it's number 18. Oh my goodness. If you do not want to be spoiled for Smile 2, I encourage you to move on. I encourage you to move to this timestamp if you do not want to be spoiled, because there's no way for me to talk about this movie and how much I loved it without doing so. 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. So, the second that I saw the trailer for this movie, wow. I was so hopeful that they were going to do what they did, and they did the damn thing. I am so happy that they have her pass the demon on in front of a crowd. I am so excited to see what Smile 3 has in store because of just how big they are able to go with it. I feel like there's so much potential, and I fear for what could happen to a third movie. I'm just hoping and praying that they do it justice, because a third one would go so hard. So incredibly hard. Next. Welcome back, everyone who did not want to be spoiled. I will not be spoiling this one. If I do want to spoil again, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. But we'll see. So, Cuckoo. I think this one got less love than Longlegs, and I'm very sad for it. Cuckoo's also a very big feminist movie, and I love it. I think it is so good in the way that it portrays reproductive autonomy, and I will leave it at that. 4.5 out of 5. Go watch it. I watched these a month apart. I watched Longlegs on the 11th of July, and I watched this one on the 11th of August. So they were overlapping in its theater time. Again, I believe that this one is just a little bit better than Longlegs. If you like Longlegs, I would recommend this one. But honestly, do what you want. National Anthem. Oh, such a good movie. I hate that this movie was not shown in my theater, even though we have a lot of theaters compared to where it was shown. Alas, I did go see this, and it is beautiful. This and the next movie that are on the list, I think I saw around the same time. So I saw this movie and the next one on the list about a month apart, and they both they're separate sides of the same coin kind of deal. Where I would recommend this one to anyone who is trans and allies. The next one, I would say that it is, while still can be enjoyed by both, I think that it does more for trans people than it does for allies. Whereas this one I feel like is better for like if you're trans and trying to show someone what it means or kind of exploring gender identity and all of that. I would recommend that you show them this one over the next movie. Not to say that this one's worse or anything. I think that these ones are actually tied because I feel like they were both so similar while being two different movies. This one is so beautiful. I definitely want to own this one physically. And the main actor, I forget his name, but he was also the main character in Looking for Alaska, the TV show, and I just really like them as an actor. I definitely want to see them in more. I saw this one on July 21st, and the next movie I saw about a month later on the 18th of August. And this one, it just edges it out a little bit, literally just point 0.5. 0.5 stars is what its difference is. The premise of this being we have Elliot Page's character coming back home after 4 years of not being home, and it is the first time that the family is seeing him post transition. The last time that they saw him, he had not been out as trans, or maybe he just started coming out. Very beautiful movie. Very, very beautiful. I wish I could put it higher. But as you will see, it only gets harder. Pray for me. Mhm. 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 Oh, masterful director. Here, it's the best I can do for you. Can you read it? I saw this after I saw the TV Glow, and I don't want to say that it was better having watched it afterwards, but I did get to see a lot of the Easter eggs in this, or I guess the Easter eggs that were in TV Glow that are in this movie since this one came out first. Love it. I love it, love it, love it. I definitely want to rewatch it again. I think it really captures the dark side of the internet from someone who has been on the internet. Whereas, like, I feel like the opposite of this is Unfriended. If you liked Unfriended, I don't think you're gonna dislike this one, but I think if you didn't like Unfriended, you will like this one. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not. Watch it at your own risk. I'm not your mother. I would recommend it, but who am I? So this one, oh my god. I mentioned it again in the Twilight sock video, the first one. Wow. This one and My Old Ass are very, very, very similar movies. This one also has a little bit of extra little spice to it. I don't want to say what. I think you should go watch it. But yeah, it's so good. Another coming of age. She's 12 years old and it is set in Ireland. It has Barry Keoghan. He is her father. There's a funny little joke about Saltburn. They mention Murder on the Dance Floor as being like a really shitty song, or like, why would you dance to that kind of thing? So good. I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it does a really good job of doing the job of a coming of age movie without being run of the mill coming of age. And we've come across the last rewatch. I had watched Whiplash in about 2014, 2015 when it was out on like DVD or something. I think I rented it from like Redbox. But having watched it again for the first time in 10 years, it really does add an extra level of it. Like, I feel like there was a lot more appreciation that I could have for the movie itself. 5 out of 5, it's number 12. We're nearing the cream of the cream. Is that the... I don't think that's the phrase. The cream of the crop? That's the word. The cream of the cream. Whiplash. This next one. I'm not gonna skirt around this. This is a FNAF fan movie. And I know you may be thinking, looking at this screen, how the hell is a FNAF fan movie better than even Whiplash, right? Let alone any other movie that is currently on that has been on this list. But when I tell you the amount of sheer talent within this film, I cannot express to you in words that are adequate enough to show how amazing this is. Of all of these, we'll recommend that if you are interested in how the internet tells horror or shows horror in a different way than the typical media slash like movies do, I would highly recommend this one. I don't think that there are any voice lines. It is mostly silent, and I know it sounds like I'm not selling it. You do not have to know much, if anything, about the FNAF lore. It is only like a certain subsect of the whole lore, but I think that it's very, very beautifully done. And the good thing about coming at it at this time is that they've since released a kind of walking through my thought process kind of video where they explain a lot of the deeper Easter eggs and how he made this whole film. It is a feature length and it is done entirely on Blender. It is a software that you can make 3D render sculptures, animations, what have you. Watch it and tell me if you disagree with it being this high. If you do, that's totally fine. But if you can see just how much beauty is in this movie, if you can separate the fact that it is a fan movie, then hopefully you'll start to get this. But wow, I was truly, 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 truly blown away by this. I definitely want to rewatch it. I watched this the day it came out. That's so funny. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. Well, two things actually. I just remembered. So this is on YouTube, so I will link it down below and potentially in the cards. If it pops up, it pops up. Please go watch it. If you watch no other movie on this list aside from this one, I'll be fine. I'll be happy. At least you tried, you know? Second, I loved this movie so much. I put it on Letterboxd. You can go through like another website. It explains it on Letterboxd, but you go through another website and put it in there and you're able to find it on Letterboxd. So I did that. And that's how much I loved this movie. Enough about that. We need to move on because we've hit top 10, baby. All right. I don't know why my heart's racing. It's so vulnerable showing you my top 10 movies that I loved this year. I will say, 2024, an amazing year for movies. And I think I said that last year because 2023 was also a very good year for movies. But I truly do feel like with every good release that comes out this year, it outweighs severely just how many shitty releases there were. Lest you forget, Harold and the Purple Crayon came out this year. I didn't watch it. I don't want to watch it, but I feel like we're really back, you know? And Nosferatu's coming out. I'm so excited for that. What am I doing here? Let's stop stalling. We got Purple Cape. So this is a short film, and I know I've mentioned it before, but being autistic, you grow up feeling very othered without knowing why. And sometimes I do wish I had a purple cape because I could have just blamed it on that. And you know what? I think now in life, not that I blame my autism in situations like this, but I feel more confident in life knowing that it is my autism. Like, autism is my purple cape, and I shouldn't be ashamed of it. And that's what this movie is trying to show you, that it just takes one person to believe in you, and to even not even just believe in you, but just tell you like, hey, what you're doing is cool. Whether it be, and I'm gonna get emotional, whether it be like a teacher, which it is in this case, or your older self, because I've done a lot of reparenting of myself, my younger. I do internal family systems therapy. If you want to know more about it, let me know. This little short film speaks to me so deeply. I highly recommend it. Please go watch it. I will also put this in the cards Aside from the movie at 11, so Family Comes First, I highly, highly, highly recommend you watch this one. If you don't want to give an hour-long video a shot, watch this one. It is amazing. I also watched this, I believe the day it came out, on the 19th of July. I could be wrong, but I believe that it came out on the 19th of July, and that's when I watched it. I know it says 4, but I think it's actually like a 5 now, just with how deep it cuts, you know? Shifting gears! We have Terrifier 3. This is another movie that I watched the day it released, so the day before. It is somehow better than the second one. I am obsessed. I love how gruesome it was while still having a good story. I know that that's contested and it's a hot take honestly at this point to say that Terrifier 3 does have plot. The depiction of PTSD within this movie I think is so accurate. You wouldn't expect it from a Terrifier film on like just from looking at it on the surface. I am so excited to see what happens in the fourth one, to see how this all wraps up. I think this is the last one that's coming out. I don't know if it's next year, but whenever it does come out, I will be seated. Promise you that. Oh, speaking of animation, Look Back. Oh, Look Back. No way. I saw Look Back 2 days, 3 days before Terrifier 3. This is such a beautiful movie. So my husband is the reason why we went to go see this. I think even if he hadn't known about the title, we still would have looked into it and eventually gone to see it. This is a story about two kids who essentially grow up together and both create manga. We see their relationship progress. This one's more tied to art, so it's very much like you have to create. You have to make art and put it out there. Like you have no other choice kind of thing. Creating something is so hard regardless of how good it is. Some people might look at the animation style of Look Back and say this is really shitty, like the lines are very sketchy, like it doesn't look polished and whatnot, because it's very intentional. There is a very clear difference between AI art and art made by humans. One of the biggest, easiest, clearest points to look at is intentionality with where things go, where a brushstroke goes, the choice to keep or get rid of sketch marks. There's so many different things that go into human-made art that can never be replicated by AI, at least in the capacity that we have it right now. We would need quantum computers to do that, because it would have to mimic a human. And as an idea, as a theory, as a concept, I don't think that AI will replace artists in real life, where we see clearly that corporations and companies and billionaires don't value art for whatever reason it may be. We can get into that discussion separately, but I think that the worry is not that AI will surpass humans in ability to create art without messing up, so like fingers and things like that. It's that even at the level that it's at right now, it will replace people, because if a billionaire can get a couple extra dollars a year, they will. And not hiring artists is not just a couple dollars. They're already underpaid. If you look into the manga and anime industry as a whole, it is so horribly, horribly exploitative. No one's getting paid properly. And I know that we're going on a full tangent, and I will probably make a whole video on this if you're willing to like listen. But yeah, that's just I guess my stance on AI, and I could go on forever about it. I absolutely despise the capitalist structure that we live in, and that AI is being used to get rid of inherently human positions to benefit the rich, instead of getting rid of very menial jobs as a benefit to society. I would love to get to the point where we don't have to worry about AI taking jobs, because jobs are no longer a necessity. I will leave it at that. Go watch Look Back, and create art. If you are an artist in any capacity, whether you want to label yourself as a capital A artist, TM, or someone who just does art as a hobby, you need to create art. Bottom line, point blank, period. The end. Number 7. Oh goodness, oh goodness. Breakthrough Director Award goes to Vera Drew for this beautiful masterpiece. It won the Gotham Award, or Vera Drew won the Gotham Award for Breakthrough Director, which I think is hilarious because Gotham Joker is very fitting, very fitting. I think she enjoys that. But the amount of good T for T media, for lack of a better phrase, has been so beautiful and refreshing to see in a landscape where being trans is a political statement, unfortunately, and we can't just exist as people without having to really justify it. I don't want to keep saying it, but go watch these movies. Also, I watched this on DVD. Well, I guess it was technically Blu-ray. I was gonna buy it off of like directly from Vera Drew's website or wherever she had it. But I didn't. I held off on it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. And then I found it in person, and I was like, hell yeah, I have to get it now. So, okay. And now we're here. And now for a real pain. I recently watched this on the 24th of November, and this was another one that I was very excited to see from the second that I saw the first trailer. I knew it was right up my alley. It's like the second coming of age, or like the adult coming of age stories, where we explore these themes of grief. And in this one, I jokingly put in my Letterboxd review that it should have been called a real depiction of generational trauma. Alright, so we're entering the top five. I don't think I'm going to go quickly, but let's go as quickly as I possibly can. Here's the top five. Alright. I saw this for the first time this year. This is not a rewatch, and I thankfully, since I missed it originally coming out in theaters and being played in IMAX, I am so unbelievably happy that I was able to see it for the first time ever the way that it was intended in IMAX. I hate the seats in the IMAX theater, and at this rate, I will only ever go to see a Christopher Nolan movie because he's proven himself worthy of the pain that it takes to sit through sitting in the IMAX seats. I'm so happy that I waited to watch this. I think part of the reason why I did not watch Interstellar when it first came out in 2014 was because Mackenzie Foy is in it. And if you've been paying attention and recognize that name, because I know that name's not very recognizable, she plays Renesmee in Breaking Dawn Part 2. And Breaking Dawn Part 2 came out in 2012, and I was still reeling from the catastrophic time of my life that was Twilight no longer being in it. It was still in it, it obviously still is in it, but what I mean is I was still reeling. So any tangential relation to Twilight, I just couldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So thankfully, 10 years later, I was able to watch it. I'm also happy because in waiting 10 years essentially, like with Whiplash, I was able to see it for the first time with way better glasses, so to speak, than 16-year-old me, because that would have been 10 years ago. I can kind of see where people are annoyed at like how cheesy this is. I think we need more hopeful movies that are gut-wrenching like this one. It hits a lot harder when you get such a good payoff. I think being essentially dragged through the mud first and put through very shitty situations and then getting a very hopeful ending is a lost art in a lot of movies nowadays, and I think Nolan did it perfectly in 2014. The other thing, in having watched Interstellar after Oppenheimer, I can see how he took what he learned in Interstellar and perfected it for Oppenheimer. Comment down below, do you agree with me on that sentiment of Interstellar being a precursor in many ways to Oppenheimer? Talk about feminist horror. Talk about feminist horror. Talk about feminist horror. You know what? While we're here, I'm gonna pull up my Letterboxd. Alright, as disgusting as Terrifier 2 and as emotionally gut-wrenching as any Oscar-winning drama, the moral of this horrifying fable is that to be a woman is to be objectified, and to fit into the ideal, you must mutilate yourself and like it. After watching this, it made it to my top 4, and at the end of this, we will go over what my top 4 are currently, so that next year we can revisit and see what my top 4 looks like in 2025. That is wild. That is wild. That is wild. All right, back to this. Like I said in my written review, this movie really does a good job of showing that being a woman, especially in Hollywood, is so unbelievably hard because you are forced to hate yourself first, and then after that, you're forced to fit whatever ideal is set, whether it be attainable or not. And then the third step in this whole thing is you will be ridiculed for it. Regardless of if it is the in thing right now, at some point you will be ridiculed for it, and I will leave it at that, and we've made it. And we've made it, and we've made it. So I'm glad that I'm refilming this, because when I went to go film this video the other day, when I tried to go film this video, I had not yet watched Queer. And you know what? I was excited for this movie, but I truly could not fathom just how much I would love this movie. And we'll finally now be able to talk about Challengers. At first, I didn't really like Challengers as much as I do now, even though the reason I like it a lot more now is just a theory.
A film theory!
So my headcanon is that he first released Challengers so that people would be like, oh, he's a trusted director, I can go watch his other movie, like it can't be more gay than this. And then they go watch it and they're punched in the face with a beautiful, heart-wrenching, wild ride. The way that I describe this movie is Beau is Afraid meets I Saw the TV Glow. Ended up watching it because I am part of the AAA24 membership thing. I have proof. I don't know why I'm so dead set on showing you this. It doesn't matter. It truly has no bearing on anything. It's hard because it's metallic. We got membership card. There's no details on this. This is just the welcome to the membership thing that you get. This is just for show. Because A24 people are insufferable, me included. I saw this on the 15th, so 2 days ago now. This is 17th today. I've alluded to this movie, and here we finally are. I Saw the TV Glow. When I tell you that this movie ignited something within me, I truly mean it. This would have been my number one. And you know what? This is my number one movie of 2024 for movies that came out in 2024, which is a hint to the next one. It didn't come out in 2024. This one and the next movie are going to have their own videos separately. I mentioned it before, the internal family systems. It ties into this. And wow. I felt so artistically rejuvenated when watching this. It was so beautiful to watch and so terribly hurtful to see. It really did open my eyes a lot to exploring my gender even further, where I had gone into this movie knowing that I was on the non-binary spectrum, genderqueer, what have you. All of that to say, this changed me fundamentally. And I didn't think, I really, when watching this movie, up until watching what is at the number one spot, I did not think that anything could top this. I thought that this movie was going to be my forever top one movie. And I will get into this later, but this is a trans allegory. But when I was watching this movie, I picked up the message very fast. And I thought that I picked it up so fast that I was like, this can't be the only thing that this movie is talking about. So when I was watching the movie, I had in the back of my head, like, oh, I know this is like a trans queer story. So I had that, and I was still perceiving this movie through that lens, but I was searching for other lenses to be able to watch this movie through. And when people talk about this movie in terms of nostalgia and fandom, what largely gets lost in that conversation is how validating this is for someone who is autistic and or has ADHD because of like hyperfixations and stuff. I felt so seen in Maddie's character being so enthralled in this piece of media that it starts to become their safety blanket in a way. Like if we're looking at it separated from the trans allegory, right? And it's just a story about an autistic experience growing up. I think if you watch the movie through that lens, you will get a completely new take on it. I truly believe that this movie does so much more than just portray a trans experience. I think if you choose to look at it that way and only that way and be disappointed by it, you're missing out. I think that there is a very beautiful trans story that's in this, and everything else on top of it. It is such a beautiful chameleon of a story. I saw this on May 16th, by the way. And this was like, again, since I had a pause of watching movies from February to May, and I didn't watch any movies before February, this was kind of one of the first movies that I saw this year. And I really hesitated to be like, this is the best movie of the year, but as I kept watching movies until the next one, I was like, yeah, there's nothing that can beat this. Like, Queer is great, but it does not come close to I Saw the TV Glow. And Eighth Grade is first. I know what you're thinking. Maybe not, you're not thinking, I don't know. How is a movie about an eighth grader from 2018 this person's favorite movie of the entire year? Topping what they just said about I Saw the TV Glow, right? I had the second most visceral reaction to this movie that I've ever had to any movie ever. Second only to the reaction of seeing Carlisle's head being ripped off, unbeknownst to me, when watching Breaking Dawn Part 2 for the first time. If my husband and I had been alone in that theater, I would have sobbed uncontrollably. I kept it in because there were people a little bit to the left of me, all to say that I was sobbing quietly as I could, to the point where I thought that I had to leave the theater because of how much this movie resonated with me. I left the theater. You know what? I'm gonna put the pictures on screen. I took these pictures when there was no one sitting next to me. So you can see the before and after here. Absolutely wild. You can see just how deeply this movie cut me. I remember being so moved by this, and currently still, I sat down and said, you know what? I have to make a video about this. And this was back on August 7th. I have been sitting on this potential video for so long, and it one day will see the light of day because I need to make it. Like I was saying with Look Back, going back to internal family systems, the way that I watched this movie was through that lens, and I will go into much more depth in that other video, but whenever that does come out. You know what? I'm gonna strive. What day does my birthday fall on? I will keep this in. Hold me accountable. My goal is to have this video out on my birthday, May 1st, 2025. So keep an eye out for that. I will go into much more depth about it, but for now, just know that this movie beat out every other movie that I talked so highly about, and there is a very good reason for it, so stay tuned. Let's quickly look at what my top 4 on Letterboxd is as of the end of 2024. These are my top 4 movies. We have Queer. It, as I mentioned before, Substance was in this spot, but it has since moved. As you will see by the number 3 and number 2 choice, there is reason for it, because 3 is Beau is Afraid, which I have mentioned when describing Queer, and then we have I Saw the TV Glow. How could I not put Queer in my top 4 when describing it by the 2 other top movies that I have? And obviously, Eighth Grade. This is my my top 4, and if you've watched these movies and know what's going on, you get a very accurate depiction of me as a person and what my interests are, what's going on, kind of thing. To end off 2024, I will get a little sappy. Bear with me. I just wanted to say that 2024 has been one of the hardest years and one of the best years. One of the biggest things that I'm coming away 2024 with is to be compassionate. I know that it's very hard, especially in a capitalist hellscape like we're currently in, to be able to take breaks from work or take breaks from everything going on, period. But whenever you can, do something that allows you to take a break. While yes, it can be very privileged to be able to take a break, the best phrase that I heard in everything going on with Palestine and the horrors around the world, Sudan, Congo, all of it, was that us as Americans, or people who are not directly on the ground involved on what's happening, are no use to the movement if we are burnt out and unable to assist. I know it's a lot easier said than done, especially when social media is where we're learning a bunch of this stuff, but also our escape. Take breaks where you can. Watch some movies if that's what it means. Play some games if that's what it means. I would love to hear what your top movies of the year are. You can include all of them in the comments, just a really long comment or multiple comments. You can also just include your top 4. If you have Letterboxd, follow me. I do want to say thank you for watching this whole video if you've made it this far. I can't wait to see where we are this time next year when we make the next one for 2025. One of my resolutions, I know we're not talking about resolutions really, but one of my resolutions is to use my A-list more. I have had A-list nonstop since I first got it, I think in 2021 question mark, and I have missed a couple months like January, March, and April. I did not go to the movies at all and missed some very awesome bangers that I'm so sad that I missed in theaters. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, give it a like. If you like me, give it a like. If you like anything, give it a like. If you want to see more of my videos, hit subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. You know the drill. If you're on YouTube, you know what to do. If you want to give me a present, like the video, follow me on Letterboxd if you want to see, like, as they're coming out, updates. I really enjoyed making this video, and this is not going to be the only movie-related videos that you're going to get every year. I really do hope to, in watching more movies in theaters, be more active and make either like weekly movies I watched this week kind of video, or movies I watched this month, or just like a monthly wrap up of the movies, whatever it may be. That's kind of what I have pinned to potentially be a video. Whether it be, again, sitting down or something more of like a car vlog after the movie. We'll see what it ends up being, but thank you for sitting and watching this potentially 2 hour long video. I can't wait to edit this. I'm so excited. I will finally leave, and I will see you, if not next week, I will see you in the next year. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. How many times can I say that? Drink every time I say that. Don't do that. That'll kill you. Bye, guys. I will see you next time.